Hey, what's going on, Facebook? This is George, and today is January 8th, 2021, and it's the first live video on George's Space Chat. Oh, wow, Gareth Hughes, checking out from Northern Ireland. What's going on, man? Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. That is awesome. Oh, you got it, you got it. Yeah, we're doing great, man. You're blowing my mind that someone from across the, pond is checking this out. This is pretty awesome. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. Here I go, just completely off. Um, Welcome back to another live video of George's Space Chat. It's been a crazy couple weeks now since I've done the last one. I want to thank you all for being part of this. George's Space Chat is now almost 1,200 people strong. What's going on, Erie O'Farrell? Good to see you, man. Um, and I want to thank you all for being part of this. I've tried my best to use the time off from the live videos to sort of get a handle on what's going on and what's going on with the videos, with the archiving, with the links to the social media sites of all of the guests. And of course, I haven't gotten very far. So just bear with me. I am doing the best I can to update all of the information. What's going on? I see Darcel Andrews is here. Joseph Wallace, what's happening? Lane Sanders, what's going on, West Coast? Happy New Year to all of you. To all of you who have contributed to this group page and contributed to the cause, I want to publicly express my deepest gratitude for all the contributions, for all the donations. I really appreciate them very much. It is pretty awesome what you're doing. Lawrence Farmer, good to see you, man. I will try to keep this going as long as I can and as long as I have something hopefully interesting to talk about. Having said that, let me get into the schedule for January 2021 real quick, because I'm super proud of this schedule. I think there's some really interesting stuff here. Today we are doing the third panel discussion entitled Broadway Uncovered. So this is Broadway Uncovered Part 3. My guests today are the great Carl Carter, the great Alex Eckhardt, the great Ann McSweeney, and the awesome Lynn Keller. And she's great, of course, as well. So, you know where I'm coming from. They're all great, and I'm super excited to have them here with me today. They are good friends. They are great colleagues. They all play really high visibility gigs and have played high visibility gigs for a very long time. Marty Eisenberg, good to see you, man. Yeah. Also, of course, anybody out there watching, send me a message in the comments. Let me know who I'm talking to. As I said, Happy New Year to all of you. I know here in the US, we just survived a violent right-wing coup attempt by right-wing domestic terrorists, most of which were white men. So we are, battered and bruised, and hopefully the ones who are responsible for this coup attempt, get to face the consequences of that. We'll just have to wait and see. For the time being, the double standard of white identity politics is at full display here in the U.S., and it is not news to the black, African American, and minority in general, minority population of the U.S., but it's perhaps for the first time on full display what the rest of the world is concerned, and the world is watching. That's all I can say to that, and of course the world is seeing all of this stuff. Jimmy McGear, hello from. Oh, I'm reading your comment. Hello from Portland. What's going on? Hello back to Portland. Okay, awesome. So, having said all that, back to the schedule for January. Today we're doing Broadway Uncovered, and today in a week I am so excited to be talking about the group Stuff, and I've entitled that particular live video Stuff and Sounds, which is referencing the awesome Quincy Jones album Stuff and Sounds Like That. And my guest next week is going to be the mighty Frank Canino, who is, from what I can understand, in my humble opinion, the best resource when it comes to the music of Stuff, and who's a mighty bass player himself. And I wouldn't feel right doing an episode or doing a live video about Stuff, about the band Stuff, without having Frank here. So that's going to be next week. The week after that, January 22nd, we have the Book of John, ... Miller. I get a kick out of that. I don't know if I'm the only one, but I find that hilarious, okay? So John Miller, longtime New York bass player, and one of the main contractors, theatrical contractors here in the city, is joining me for a live video. Be prepared for some interesting background, some of which hits very close to home for me, which I had no idea. So be prepared for something really interesting, okay? The week after that, excuse me, I am talking to the griot of South Orange, and I am so excited and so grateful that Mike Griot, the great bass player Mike Griot, has agreed to do this live video, and I wanted to dedicate an entire hour to him. I think he is a phenomenal bass player. He lives out in South Orange. I don't know any other bass player, any other musician for that matter, who started his own international music festival. Okay, so be prepared for a lot of really interesting and really good information. There's a lot, that I find, that I learned from talking to Mike, and that I learned from listening to him play. So I wanted to share that with all of you out there. And then we have February coming up, February 2021, which is the birthday month of our patron saint, James Jamerson. So I decided that I am going to do an entire month dedicated to James Jamerson. I don't know exactly what that will entail, but I'm working on it. So I will dedicate February 2021 to St. James Jamerson, who showed us all the way how to play pop music, how to play R&B, without whom you out there would not see me talking to you, because what he did is the blueprint, is the basis, is the foundation to everything that we know. There are very few moments in time, perhaps, where a genius really shows up. And I believe that James Jamerson was one of those geniuses. That's just my opinion. I stand by it, and I will stand by it until the day I don't play, and until the day I die, basically. That's that's just how I see things. So St. James is going to be featured in February of 2021. Plus, I'm also going to, and this is where this might be, self-gratifying, but I think it needs to be done. I am also going to somehow feature my late great teacher, the great Professor Johannes Auersberg, who also was an Aquarius, whose students are, after 30 years of playing, most of them were Aquariuses, myself included. So it would not feel right to not talk about Auersberg. I'm trying to set up something with people in Vienna, and working on it. So stay tuned for that. I think there's some interesting information coming your way. There's certainly interesting information that I find that I am looking forward to. Having said all that, let's get into it for today's live video. I am talking today to 4 great bass players who have held chairs on Broadway and who not only held any kind of Broadway show chair, no, these shows were incredibly successful. All of these shows are Tony winners. All of these shows were nominated. All of these shows were successful not only in terms of the audience response, but also in terms of very straight down the middle financial goals. I mean, these are all money makers. And all of these bass players defy the stereotype of that you have to be white and male in order to play musical theater gigs and in order to play on Broadway. So I think at this point, it's probably the best time to bring them on. Let me see, I got a couple people in the waiting room. Before I'm getting Zoom bombed, let me just see who is in the waiting room. There we go. Awesome. Okay. So. All right, Ann McSweeney is connecting. Who else do we have here? Hey, what's going on? What's going on, Carl Carter?
Hey, what's up?
Hey, Marianne, how you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for asking me to do this. How are you?
Oh, of
Hi,
course.
Carl.
Hey, Marianne.
All right, Lynn Keller.
Lynn.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Crazy time.
Now this is cool.
Fantastic. This is so great. Hey, what's going on, Lynn? Good to see you.
Hi, how are you, George?
Hey, Lynn.
Very good. I'm very good. It's so great to see you all. I'm so thrilled that you're here.
And you.
I'm so grateful that you're all here. We'll see. Alex Eckhardt might join us later on. I don't see her yet, but you know, the minute she's here, she'll come on.
Okay.
How are you all doing? I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're all staying sane and safe and all of that. It's been crazy times. We all, you know, we're all in it right now.
For sure. For sure.
There's just no two ways about it. So fingers crossed that the next 2 weeks, you know, that we somehow survive the next 2 weeks and the time after that.
I know.
We will.
Yes.
We will.
Yeah.
You know, we're still here, man. We're still here.
Yeah,
you
no doubt. No, we are.
We
still
just
here.
gotta just maintain that.
Yeah. I totally agree. You know, and you know, if some idiots want to be stupid, you know, that's on them. It's ain't nothing we can do about it, you know, but maintain and, you know, stay safe. Oh, here's Alex. Let me just get her in right away.
How do we get this going on our feeds from our? Do we?
Hey, what's going on, Alex?
There she is.
Excellent.
So happy to see all of you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Good seeing
Marianne, I believe you asked me this is going to George's Space Chat, okay? So you can see it on George's Space Chat. I can minimize this screen a little bit.
Invite people like right now.
Absolutely. If you want to invite people, invite them right now. I will let them in to the chat. That's probably, let me just make sure I don't say anything stupid because
it's all good. George, take your time.
This is not this is a one man operation here, okay? This is not
it's all good.
This is not Berkeley College with someone sitting in the background.
Right, out of sight.
Doing all the computer stuff, okay? It's just me.
Come on, George. We're old friends, man. It's all good.
I'm doing the best I can over here. But yeah, if you wanna invite people to see to the base chat group, just send them an invitation, and I'll let them in right away so they can see it. In case that doesn't work, I can always let them in at a later time, and all of these videos are archived on my YouTube page. So if they do a YouTube search for George Farmer, they'll find all of the videos. They're all there.
Nice.
Great.
And in the meantime, there's like over 50 videos.
Wow.
I've been doing it since March, April of last year.
Awesome, George.
So to that meaning the live videos together with the follow-up videos at this point is well over 50. And
That's
it's
fantastic.
it's some interesting content. I mean, there's interviews with Otis Williams, with Will Lee, with various musical directors, Sherry Rosen, Rona Siddiqui, Chris Fennick. I think just this week I released the one with Duncan Sheik.
Oh, cool.
After this video, I'm doing a follow-up video with Norm Lewis.
Oh,
So,
Really?
Yeah, there's some really interesting stuff coming.
Nice.
Norman Lewis is really good at he's got the one-handed push-ups.
Oh really? Oh, because I do those too. That's funny. He never mentioned that. I've played with Norm now for over 5 or 6 years. He never once mentioned that. That's interesting. I'm gonna challenge him on
You
that.
have to mention it again.
Okay.
Norm, give me 20 on the one hand.
Exactly. All right, so let's get into it. The reason why we're all here today is because you all were kind enough to answer the request that I put out there. Broadway Uncovered is a panel discussion, a panel conversation that I initiated, where I wanted to feature bass players who not only play some of the highest grossing shows on Broadway and in musical theater, but who also defy the stereotype of you have to be white and you have to be male in order to play on Broadway, right? Very much too often, that stereotype is still being upheld by a number of extremely racist hiring practices that are rooted in stereotypes of black people can't read music, women can't play, nobody's ever available, et cetera, et cetera. And part of this this attempt today, just like the previous two ones, is to basically shine a light on the people who are doing it, because there's a number of black musicians on Broadway. There's definitely not enough, and they're definitely in the absolute minority. There's a number of female musicians on Broadway who otherwise get just overlooked, right, and never get featured. There's no representation, neither from 802 nor from anybody else, really, from what I can tell, from what I can see. And I wanted to do something about that, and hopefully people out there who are in that category, who are in those categories, either female or people of color, hear our stories and are perhaps inspired to. Meaning musicians are perhaps inspired to make this musical theater part of their career choice. This is a lot of my peers, a lot of my contemporaries in the African American community don't even consider Broadway or musical theater at all, because why would they? They don't get any jobs. They don't get hired, even if they have the goods, even if like all of the pedigree, everything is in place, right? So this is my attempt to say, listen, we're here. We have done this for a very long time. We are extremely successful at this, even though you won't see us on pictures at 802. You won't see us on pictures in Allegro or in any other publication. We are still here, and we are doing this, and that should give you inspiration, perhaps motivation, to reach out, be it to us or to the people in your community, and say, listen, I can do this. There's a spot for me here, right? So all of this analysis, all of this kind of setup to get to this point right now. So why don't we start by why don't all of you tell me what your first Broadway job was and what your most recent was, and perhaps understanding like it's a big topic, so perhaps keep it brief, but don't feel like you have to censor yourselves. Carl, you're the first one on my screen. Why don't we get started with you? So how did you start in this environment, and what was your most recent job?
Well, I got started. Alex Lackamore actually called me for Bring It On.
All right.
But prior to that, meeting Alex, I subbed on The Wiz at City Center.
Okay.
And that's where I first met Alex. And then just, he took my number and we exchanged numbers and just talked about, we contact each other periodically. And, and he started calling me for sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And then about 3 years later, called me for a show. Right. Sounds simple, but it took a long time, it took a very long time to get to that point,
right?
Because I remember trying to get, just trying to contact people to try to sub or what have you, and nothing, because they didn't know you, and they wouldn't call you back. You email people, nothing. So I kind of, at that point, kind of gave up until Carrie Potts called and said, hey, you might want to check this out. And here we are. Right. My latest one is my last show I'm on now is Come From Away.
Right.
So
Come From Away, huge hit,
amazing
Tony winner and all of
Tony winner, amazing storytelling, very stripped down, but just the best thing. It's actually the best thing. It's this amazing show. So I'm very, very fortunate.
Oh yeah,
to be
no doubt
doing that.
No doubt. Well, I mean, you touched on something really interesting that I think we can get into later on as well, which is that it takes a long time to get to the place.
Absolutely.
Until you have built, like, I'm dating myself, until you've built the Rolodex of connections that you can sort of draw from, right?
Absolutely.
And that puts you in a situation where you're at City Center, or you're in another session, or on another gig with other musicians.
You just never know.
Exactly.
You never know when that's going to come from, and we can, like you said, we can get into that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, listen, let's go down the list. Ann McSweeney, same question to you. What was your first show, and what was your latest endeavor?
The very first show when I got to town was I subbed on Tommy, and then my first chair was a show Charlie Brown. That was the first chair I. And then I went to Avenue Q and some other, then Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder, and then the last thing I was doing was Girl from the North Country. Right. On stage in a costume. That was that, and I've subbed on 47 shows.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
47, and I think I might have gotten that wrong. Like there might be something in there but yeah, I mean, just kind of working and doing whatever and playing low notes.
Right.
Money notes. Right.
Right. Play a good quarter note, you're good to go.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, let me move on real quick. Lynn Keller, it's good to see you.
Good to see you, George.
Awesome. Why don't you tell us your first show and your most recent endeavor?
My first show was in 2004. Right. And what was interesting about that was I hadn't been pursuing theater. I just kind of figured it wasn't for me. Right. And I was in Japan at the time. I was music director for Rita Coolidge, and I was in Japan. And I checked my email, and there was an email from some guy named John Miller wanting to know, do I want to do a tour of Little Shop of Horrors? And and he said, go out and get the soundtrack. And if you like it, you can do the show. Well, what he did say actually is, if you like it, then on your dime, you can fly to New York and you will play the show on Broadway as your audition.
Wow.
That's what I did. And, I never, I can't believe I got through that. I was shaking like so badly going through that whole experience. And I had a wonderful bass player, Steve Gelfond, who just was so lovely and encouraging. He held the chair and I sat with him and, but so that was in 2004. I did that tour for 2 years. And then my most recent tour was School of Rock from 2017 to 19.
Oh, wow. Two
and then subbed
years.
On Escape to Margaritaville this year. Last year.
Yeah. Nice, awesome. That's
very cool.
Also for those watching, for those listening, I do have to give Lynn a shout out, because Lynn was the bass player and MD for none other but Diana Ross for many, many years. All right.
Well, I wasn't the MD, but
okay.
I was happy to be the bass player on and off 10 years with her.
10 years. I mean, that's a tough gig, okay? And a tough gig. That's a big gig, period. I don't know whether it's a tough gig or not, but it's a big gig. Those are big shoes to follow. I mean, Diana Ross, somebody who has worked with Jameson, who has worked with Nile Rodgers, Bernard Edwards, who has worked with the great Francisco Centeno, all of those lines, those are not easy to play. So my hat goes off to you, Lynn. That's awesome. And also, I have not forgotten, I want to get you on a follow-up video. So I'll text you about all of that, and we'll find a day and time.
Great.
Awesome. Alex Eckhardt, what's going on?
George, what's up?
All right.
I'm supposed to go after Diana Ross.
I know, this is no pressure.
Well,
but why don't you give us a rundown of your introduction and then perhaps your most recent endeavor?
Yeah, actually, like Carl, mine was, my getting into this community was through Alex Lacamoire too, weirdly, and it actually happened in a very strange way. Through an audition, which I know is not normal at all, and I did not know that at the time, but now I look back and I see how lucky that was. I had just graduated from UConn. I was studying jazz and music ed with Kenny Davis, and I had a random summer gig the month after I graduated, doing an elementary school production of, I think it was Bye Bye Birdie in Chappaqua, New York.
Oh, wow.
As random as it gets. And the MD was like, there's an audition for this show that's going on tour. It's a Broadway show. You should check it out. I was like, great. I've never heard of it. And it turned out to be In the Heights, which I checked out the entire record. Uriel Farrell.
Yeah.
Killing. I was like, I need to do this. I'm obsessed with it. So it was a 3-part audition process. I think the first part I had to send in me playing a couple songs, and then I don't remember the second part, but the third part I met up with Lac and had an in-person audition, and a week or so later he said I got it. So that kind of thrust me into this world, and I did that, and it was the non-equity national tour. So that was an introduction if you've ever done a non-ec tour.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
Put your gloves on. It's gonna be a bumpy ride.
Yeah. Your bus buddy, you're getting real comfy cozy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Walmart for lunch. Yeah, the whole shebang. And then
the glamour.
The glamour of it all.
What? And quit show business? I mean, come on.
It's luxury life. I mean, and then that led into the Book of Mormon, and that was equity, full stop, like first national tour. And then I realized what the past 9 months of my life were actually like. The difference between tours is just,
it's huge.
Yeah. It's But so I did those 2 tours and got back to New York and subbed a lot. George and Carl, you both were kind enough to let me sub for you, and a lot of people took me under their wings, and that inevitably led to my first chair on Broadway was the Band's Visit.
All right.
And then after that, I did Bat Out of Hell, which was not commercially successful, but the most fun I've ever had playing music. I had no idea it was such a meatloaf head, but it was so much fun. And since then, I was about to start a show when it got shut down, so we were in rehearsals.
Right. And that show was what?
That was The Visitor, based on the film. It was at the Public, and we didn't get very far in rehearsals. I think we were second day in.
Right.
Wow.
Well, I mean, fingers crossed that perhaps, you know, it once this is over, and at some point it will be over, you know, things will continue in one way or another. I mean, it's the best we can hope for right now. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's what we got. It's you know. Anyway, listen. Before I get to the next question here, I just want to shout out a couple people who are joining us. Joey Shoji, what's going on West Coast? Chrissy Martinez, Beryl Facey, Marco Panacea, what's going on? Kivai, Sal Lozano, the king of Los Angeles.
Hey, Sal.
Sal.
The king of Los Angeles has joined us, okay? Hashim Ibn Sharif, good to see you, my friend. All right, so, you know, as we said, like, I would like to feature all of you. I think it's important for people to know that black musicians are on Broadway, active, have always been active. There's a long, I mean, of course, I'm talking from the perspective of a bass player. There is a long tradition of bass players on Broadway, you know, be it a Sam Jones, be it a Richard Davis. I mean, Ron Carter in his book says that when he got to town, he tried to get into subbing situations on Broadway. It's been a staple of employment, right? This is what this particular panel is about. It's about employment. It's about equitable employment for everyone, right? And right now, that's just not the case. We are far, far, far away from that. There's no, you know, we're still facing stereotypes in terms of black people can't read. That's, I mean, 2020 or 2021, you will still hear those arguments, right? So, as part, excuse me, as part of my analysis before the next question, so to speak, you know, there's always the naysayers, the cynics who will say, well, you only got the job because you're black, you only got the job because you're a woman. You know, the cynics who love to accuse black musicians, female musicians of affirmative action recipients, right? To those, you know, I can't change their minds. Their minds are made up, right? I'm not interested in changing their minds. But what I do want to say, because these arguments do keep a lot of musicians away from this scene, right? And they keep them away, those arguments keep those musicians, black musicians, female musicians, away from considering this as part of their career. And all of a sudden, this vicious cycle of these musicians don't consider this part of the career, and then the decision makers can't find anybody, can't find black musicians, or supposedly can't find black musicians, can't find female musicians, right? There is so much more that goes into playing these gigs, right? There are professional standards, and I want to feature those professional standards vis-a-vis the argument of, okay, you're just recipients of affirmative action, right? So for you, what are some of these qualities? I want to focus our representation on our professional qualities, basically. What are some of these qualities? Why don't we start with Lynn?
Gosh, you know, I think the biggest thing doing what we do in the Broadway world, it's consistency and excellence and keeping it emotionally fresh 8 shows a week. And that is where I hear most of my contemporaries, most of my buddies that I do gigs with that say, man, I could never do that 8 shows a week. Or, you know, they would be bored, or they don't have the capability of playing something consistently like that.
Right.
So, you know, to me, I mean, your work ethic, your attitude is just as important. You know, but like I say, the consistency, the level of excellence that you have to expect from yourself,
oh yeah,
is so important.
Yeah, no doubt. There's nothing
Yeah.
like, I once heard this it sort of this equivalence of a Broadway show is like a live recording session, and
Yeah.
you only get one take.
Yeah.
And
That's
that's
exactly
it.
true.
You know, that's it. You don't get to go back, and there's no Pro Tools, there's none of that, right? You get one take and that's it, right? Carl Carter, why don't you chime in? Give us your representation of professional qualities. Like, what does that mean to you?
Means everything to me. You know, as an African American, you know, in the Broadway world, we're looked at, I mean, for the world in general, we're looked at differently.
Yeah.
So we got to bring it.
Yeah.
Professionalism. You know, I show up on time. I'm always early.
Mm.
Always early. I you know, commute in from Connecticut, so I'm in like an hour and a half before everyone else most of the time. Um, but like Lynn was saying, consistency. You know, and I like to have fun playing.
Mhm.
You know what I
Right.
mean? And I think that's the thing. I mean, we can be serious and all, but when I get in that pit, I'm having a blast because see, I don't have to be there. And that's how I look at it. You know,
Yeah.
I always look at it like they could have called so many other people. And I say this all the time. I mean, Alex has probably heard me say this like 1,001 times. But so I come in with joy. You know what I mean? I come in with joy and I'm professional. You know, and like I said, I just love to you got to have fun doing this. You know, you got to want to be there and you got to have fun. So I think I bring that, you know, to whatever I do, whether it's Broadway or Joe's Pub,
right,
Madison Square. You know what I mean? I bring the professionalism, and there's just nothing like there's nothing greater than that in my opinion. You know, when you're a player, you have to be, you know, just be professional and be prepared. You know, and yeah, like you say, 8 shows a week. For me, every show is different. You know, even on a Wednesday, I see the shows differently. I don't say, "Oh, here we go again," and I think that's part of the joy. You know, that's why it's easier for me because I can just, like I said, I'm just having a good time while I'm doing that. So I don't see every show as the same.
Right.
There's always something a little different. For me.
That's an interesting argument.
You know.
Yeah, that's a deep argument because I've had these conversations with you know, people from the R&B world, with people from the jazz world,
right?
Where it's like, oh man, you guys are playing the same thing every night, and et cetera, et cetera. I'm like, yeah, it's not like that because, you know, it ain't like, to just paraphrase, and I'm not putting myself in the same shoes. It ain't like I'm Ron Carter and Tony Williams and we're on tour together and he's my drummer and I'm his bass player, right? It's, I might be Ron Carter and one night I get Joe Jones, okay, and the other night I get Tony Williams, and the other night I get Al, what's his name, Al Foster, right? So there's a lot of variety, you know, going from one show to the next. And you still have to deliver, right? You still have to deliver. You still have to. Everything still needs to be there. Ann McSweeney, why don't we jump to you? Representation by focus on professional qualities. What would that mean for you?
Well, what they said for sure.
I know Alex is getting, it's gonna be like a ditto.
I think it's important to keep practicing, creating.
Oh, yeah.
You have a steady show that you take other things, so you're excited like about working on that other thing, and you bring that excitement in to the show that you're on, and you know, if you're on Broadway and not on tour and you can sub, you know, that you really prepare your subs. You bring in people who are right for the show, and you work with them, you know, and people you know who are going to be amazing, because that's a big part of it too, is like, if I mean, that's a whole other conversation, but I think it's important to do that for your colleagues, for your conductor, because it's on you. You know, if you somebody that's not quite cutting it because they bothered you like with 100 emails, or it's a friend of a friend and you don't really know, it doesn't go well for anybody. So I think being creative, you know, keep the creativity going, and being responsible for your chair. I mean, really in every way. And if that is too much for your sub to learn the A, B, we had like so much. We had costumes, we had blocking, we had to go into and kind of act a little, which was, that was hilarious. And it was a lot to ask of subs, and not everybody is down for that. You know, there are people who want to go, they want to learn the book, they just want to do their thing and get out, and they'll do an amazing job. But depending on the job, like, you have to, you know, really look at that.
Right. No, those are all totally valid points. Alex, I promise I'll get you in on the next question first. Okay. It's just
with middle moment, you know.
No, it's the configuration on my computer. That's it's totally messed up, and I don't know how to change that.
Not taking it personally, Troy.
Okay, thank you. But why don't you give us your 2 cents on professional representation? Like, what are some of these qualities? Having, you know, with the full understanding that there have been already a couple of those being pointed out now.
Yeah, you know what? Jumping on what Marianne was saying, I guess one thing you don't realize until you have a chair is that the managerial aspect of it, where you really have to be on top of rehearsals, schedules, show times, because they change. You have to be on top of your subs, and if they need anything, you have to be there for them and leave here for the, like, there's a whole list of things that, or if you're like in Italy on vacation, you still have to text them and make sure that everything's cool, because if not, you're the one that it looks bad on, that you didn't have the administrative like quality to that. But there are different qualities, I think, having a chair to being a sub that I think are important. Like, at one time when I was first getting back into the city, I think I was putting in 9 shows at once, and I loved the variety, like you were saying before, keeping it fresh, like playing 2 different shows a day, sometimes like 5 or 6 shows a week of different shows, and having to like make sure, like, it's a social thing. You show up, you meet the people in the band, and that's a headspace. Then the next place is a different headspace, and you learn how to talk to everyone and what the vibe is everywhere. You learn what the bases are, what the rig is. And consistency there for sure. It's different consistencies. As a sub, you want to represent the player's book like they do, but when it's your chair, I find there's like a little bit of more leeway for sure, but they still want to play it, you know, as
There's I always noticed that you know, the difference between being a sub and being a chairholder is in terms of responsibilities, right? As a sub, your responsibility is to sound like the chairholder, in nothing else, right? As a chairholder, you have to come up with a part that really works well, right? And therein lies like a whole nother level of difficulty, because all of a sudden you're really stretched. You know, you're dealing with this music that you've never seen before, that you've never heard before, that nobody has ever heard before. You're dealing with composers who might not, and this is not a fault of their own, who might not know what they want, right? They just want a feeling. They just want this to be a moment in time, right? and you have to, as the shareholder, you have to interpret that the right way, and you have to come up with an interpretation of that particular moment in time.
Right.
So there are different types of responsibilities that you know come in depending on whether you're a sub or whether you're a shareholder. I think there's one thing that Marianne said that struck me, and it kind of goes with my next point, which is awesome.
Nice.
Like, ding.
Love it.
That is, you know, that is the, on the one hand, keeping your own creativity going, right? And the bigger picture of that, the way I see it, is work outside of musical theater environments, right? Because those jobs, on the one hand, I mean, if we're talking about employment, right? Those jobs are your bread and butter, no matter what. Shows come and go. That's what shows do, right? You cannot sort of take it for granted that a show is going to be the next Lion King or the next Phantom or whatever. Like, if you get 2-3 years out of it, you're already in a long run. You know? So shows come and go, but the thing that pays the bills is the freelance work. So I always saw myself in the musical theater world as that. I saw that as part of my freelance endeavors, part of my freelance workload, so to speak, right? So my question to all of you is, how can we introduce attributes that we gain from freelance work into this musical theater situation, right? How does that influence you? Is there anything that can be pulled from one thing and used in the other thing, meaning in one situation and used in the other situation? Are they cross-pollinating or not? You know, I mean, it's, again, I have my own opinions about that. I'm interested in your opinions. So, Alex, why don't you start with this?
Hardest one.
Ah!
Yeah, I mean, I think, of course, that should be like fully functioning together. If you're really like a music lover, music listener, and you learn your instrument, I mean, I don't know how many people learn their instrument from listening to Broadway recordings versus.
That's a good point. Yeah.
For us, Jamerson, that's what we listen to. So we try to get the feel together for that, and like the parts and the syncopation. And then if we ever get a call, or if someone thinks of us because we can pay homage to that, you know, that serves us and the music well. I mean, yeah, I absolutely think there's an overlap of.
Oh yeah. So there's plenty of, like, the better you are in the freelance world, the better you are equipped to interpret the music that's going to be in front of you in form of, you know, a piece of paper with dots on it.
And the most versatile, like, as if you're playing like all over different genres, and you know how to interpret that piece of music and whatever feel or whatever the goal is for the project.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Who wants to go next? Don't make me the taskmaster. It's just like, go.
Well, I think for me, so much of what I do in freelance is working with vocalists, like you and I have shared, George. So there is a level of awareness and preparedness. There's a level of awareness when you're backing someone, and in the pit, you're really doing that. So I'm more keenly aware of where people are singing. You know, have they missed something? Are we all together? And also being prepared on a freelance gig translates to being prepared in the pit. And in fact, I used to tell my kids when I was teaching, the most important piece of gear to bring is your pencil. And I laugh and it's silly, but there's a lot of truth to that. So that transfers over from any gig. It's just, how prepared can you be? You know, that's my 2 cents worth on that. But
No, that's a lot. That's a lot. And I did right before I ever started doing musical theater work. I did a couple pop tours and R&B tours. And I mean, talk about repetitive material. In the pop world, you're not supposed to change your lines. You know, you're not supposed to move around too much. You have sometimes you have your place on stage, and that's where you stay for the 2.5 hours or however long the show might be, right? So uh, I do believe that there is a lot of cross pollination, and I do believe that the how shall I put this, the preparation for those gigs is entirely the same. It's you know, we're still playing music. There's you know,
Right.
Right.
is there a difference between doing like a straight ahead gig with a Benny Golson and playing fiddler? Yes, yeah, there is a huge difference.
Well,
There's
and I think one of the key elements is the conductor.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
that's a whole entity unto itself.
Oh yeah, most
As to how
definitely.
you're seeing the conductor and how you are responding versus playing a freelance gig where you're not necessarily watching a conductor at
Oh yeah,
all.
oh yeah,
So,
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. No, so where you are more of the conductor, or where you know everyone in the band supposedly is part instrumentalist and part conductor. You know, because we all communicate, or are
right,
supposed to
right.
communicate. Marianne, Carl, who wants to go first?
Carl does.
I'll go.
But by the way, before you do that, Carl, Cherise Rogers is in the chat and says, "Look at all these badass ladies of bass, and Carl Carter is pretty too."
Oh,
God bless you. Love you, Sheree. Funny. Um, for me, I came out, I was in the touring world.
Right.
So, and I was very fortunate to play a lot of different, with a lot of different artists, and I was MD
Right.
also with a couple artists. So, and what was said earlier is that the preparedness, you know, because you're always like, you're getting thrown all these songs or all these different genres. And it's like, you know what? You just, so like when I came into Broadway, it was like kind of the same thing.
Right.
You know, it was a similar thing. Just prepare and be prepared.
Right.
You know, be prepared at any time. So it wasn't so much of a change for me.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Right. Right.
if I can add, you know what I mean. So
yeah.
you know, I was able to, and then like you were saying earlier, just you know, we're just playing music.
Right.
So it's like there's a band there outside of that, you know, when you're touring or whatever, and then there's a band here. It's a
Right.
similar thing to me.
Right.
So
Right.
it just felt the same. It didn't
Right.
feel so different. I mean, there are vast differences, obviously, but for me, it was coming very similar, coming from
Yeah.
a similar thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
If
Yeah.
that makes
So
any sense.
yeah, no, it totally does, and it does speak to, you know, the freelance work influencing what you're doing in the musical theater world, right? The one point and I'll get to you, Marianne, in just a second, but if I may add to that, I believe that the better you are in the freelance world, the better you are going to be in a musical theater situation.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Because the basis for what we do is the same. And in order to succeed in the freelance world, your basis and your foundations need to be rock solid, right? And that foundation will carry you in a musical theater situation where there is 1,000,002 things that can distract you, okay? Be it, you know, 57 different instruments that you have to play like that, or people running around half naked in front of you, okay? It's part of the job, right? You still have to hold it down.
Absolutely.
Right? Marianne, give us your 2 cents on that.
You know, I'm just tagging on to everybody. You know, I tell my students, play with other people. It's very hard right now because we're in a plague, but it's never a good idea to think, I'm going to go to school and I'm just going to do Broadway, because you're missing out. There's amazing different genres of music. there's a history, and as bass players, we need to know that history in all styles. And I think that comes from working with others live. And if that means you starting your own band and getting out there and going to get a gig and figuring it out, that's I mean, that's what I did. I've always had my own groups over the years. I think that's very important, to not think you're going to get a show and you're set for life, because look what happened. I mean, all of us had stuff going on, and then bam. And if you can be diverse under the umbrella of music, you're going to be okay. I mean, we've all had to do that. Now I'm not sure what everybody here is doing currently. I mean, we're probably all recording and things like that. And, we've had to just get that set up. If you weren't an engineer, you are now.
Got that right.
We are now. And bring it on, and let the projects can come in, and whatever style. If you know a bunch of styles, like I studied Jimi Hendrix a lot when I was in a blues band, and Stevie Ray Vaughan bass lines, and then the Ray Brown bass lines, and all that stuff. I came here thinking I was going to be a jazz musician in New York, and I started working pretty soon after I got to New York on Broadway, because it just happened. I'd been doing stuff in LA, but now what was I lost my point, but my point is, you get what I'm saying, though, right?
Listen, I've been doing a lot of these videos. I'm the king of rambling. Okay, so don't feel any way about this. Like, if somebody is just poof and it's gone, it's gonna be this dude here. Okay.
But I have to interject, because I live in LA, and I remember you, Marianne, from way back then. And I remember when you went to New York, and you were like a shero, because there you were before we knew it. You were doing Broadway, and it's like, oh, she's doing so good. It was very exciting, and that's been a lot of years now.
It's been 20 years, but thank you for saying that, because it was really scary. I left with a truck full of instruments, literally a truck, and a mattress. And I left LA, and I was like, I got to just try this. If it doesn't work out, I'll come back.
Right. That's incredibly deep. Well, and as I said at the beginning, and I'm going to repeat that a couple times throughout this conversation, because I do want to make this point. The reason why we're here is so that people hear these stories and hopefully see themselves in us or in our stories, right? This is important. If you don't, we had this, I did a show, Fun Home, Alex subbed for me on it, and it won a bunch of Tonys and whatnot, right? And I think Janine Tesori said it when she received her Tony, that she saw Linda Twine on stage at the Tonys many years prior to that, receiving a Tony, and I forgot for which show. I believe it was Color Purple. It might have been something else. But it took Janine Tesori to see Linda Twine on stage to realize, wait a second, I can do this. I see myself here, right? I am, in other words, representation matters, and that's why we're here today. So I just wanted to interject that for all the people out there who are listening, and it looks like we have quite a crowd. We got over 20 people watching us, so that's
nice.
Take it from someone who usually talks to like 7. This is a lot.
The plague. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, right. So I mean, this. If they want to join in, they're here. We're here. That's all. Go ahead.
Really quickly, I don't know if people know this, but there has been a shift. As far as like after the Me Too movement and realizing that people of color are not being hired and represented, and So there's a diversity committee at the union. There's Maestra. There's the Women of 802. These were all formed within the last, like, I think, year and a half. My time frame's a little off.
Yeah.
So that's a shift. Yes, we're still behind.
Oh yeah.
Big time.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of work to do. But if people like us get in there and start using our voices, and that's gonna really help. And also, I don't know if you're going to bring this up about, who hires you. It was usually one or two or three people, and that's got to change.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Right. And it is.
It is changing a little bit.
Right.
That's important because you can't just go through your Rolodex of the same people every time and put them in there.
Yeah.
It's not going to work out.
That's exactly. Yeah, that's exactly how we ended up in this situation. Yeah, no, this contractors are gatekeepers. There's just no two ways about that. And the fact that we only have 3 or 4 contractors in New York,
right?
Decidedly, the capital of musical theater, the capital of culture, whatever, is not a good sign. That's just it just isn't. That is not good, right? That is a huge problem. There is a problem of reaching out to other groups. There's a problem of finding other musicians, for other musicians to find the people who hire, who do the hiring, right? I mean, the way how I got started was that I went to a clinic when Bass Day was still in New York. And I went to a clinic of John Miller's, and he at the time totally broke it down and said, listen, if you want to have this gig, here's what you need to do. And I was sitting there with this book. I still have it after all these years. Wow. With my note, and I took notes, and that was it. That was my beginning. And he was one of the big things that he was talking about was that we have to be our own contractors. So what does that mean? We need to see who's in our network, who's doing these kind of gigs, right? And at that point I was in New York for a solid 10 years, and I had freelanced a lot. I had done a lot of wedding gigs. I had a lot of touring experience. So of course I had a big book of contacts. And I was like, okay, well, who's playing a musical theater show? Because I've never done that, right? So who can I at least ask, listen, I want to get closer to this, right? And that's how things got started for me, and that's, led me to my first subbing job and all of that, right? But also I did, and this is perhaps, due to my own naivety or my own, call it entrepreneurism, I did see myself in these jobs, and I also, let's be honest, I am a black man in the U.S., but I wasn't born and raised here, so I don't have the trauma that a lot of or most African Americans have, right? So I did just walk in and say, I'm here. This is my gig. What are you gonna do? It was that simple, and of course, that raised a lot of eyebrows, and there was significant pushback, and all of that is to be expected. There is just no two ways about that. One thing that was said in one of the previous panels, I think Winston made this point, and I wanted to get all of yours opinion on this, and that is the way he framed it was perfect in my opinion, because he said the big elephant in the room is that as an African American musician, as a female musician, you have to be 2x, 3 times as good as everybody else. You have to be better. There's just no two ways about it. People are waiting for you to fuck up, and it might be touching the wrong string. It might be not smiling when you come in. We all have had bad days. We've all had, all of this stuff happen to us. We have all experienced life, Let me put it this way, because that's as general as I can be. But people are waiting for you to slip. So what would be a good way to deal with that? Who wants to go first? That's a tricky question, I know.
I have a bit of an anecdote I can
go for it. Go for it. Absolutely. Oh my God, saved.
Well, you're welcome, guys. So I know I've talked to a few of you about how I first became a bass player. Both of my parents play bass. My dad plays electric and my mom plays acoustic. So I never grew up thinking that I'm a girl bass player. I was just like, oh, like bass, we're all doing it. It's fun. It's family, you know, like, and even through college, like I had never considered it a gender specific thing or anything. And then the first time it became clear to me was on the Book of Mormon tour. We were in some city that I'm racking my brain about. Maybe, I don't know if I want to out them, but somewhere southern, I'll say. And one of the local musicians, after our first rehearsal, came up to me and was like, "You play pretty good for a girl."
Oh, wow.
And I was like, that rubbed me in a kind of weird way, but like, all right, that's weird. And then I told Andres Ferrero, who's amazing friend, and he was on the road with us. I told him about that, and he became livid. Like he was like, no one should say that to you. Like, this is not a gender. Like he kind of made it clear to me that that's not cool.
Right.
You know, because I guess I was just kind of like, that's weird. Yeah. That you would say that, and maybe this is just an isolated incident. But then he was like, no, you should be pissed. Like, that's not a cool thing to say to anybody. Like, it doesn't put you on a level of your playing ability by being a girl.
Right.
So from then on, I was like, oh, like this is a thing, and some gigs are female only gigs, and that's why I got it, allegedly, or this or that. It just brought it to light for me.
Oh,
and it was an enlightening moment.
No,
I'm sure.
No, most definitely. No, we've had those situations. I'm pretty sure. I know. I'll just jump in real quick and I'll tag on that. Because as I said, like I was a number of years into playing here in the city before I did musical theater work, right? I did Spring Awakening, which won all the awards, which was the highlight of the season, people changed their lives, etc., etc. I did Memphis, which again won all the awards, right? Talk of the town for 3 years, like solid 3 years between Spring Awakening and Memphis, subbed at 5 shows. So Memphis comes along, 8 shows a week in it, right? Delivered every night, right? Memphis closes after 3 years. I look out for various subbing jobs. And the first thing that I'm getting is, oh, you're really not known for playing classical music. Motherfucker, I'm from Vienna.
Hello.
Okay.
I've played more classical music than most people in pits together. Okay.
Right? Like his great grandchildren.
Well, I mean, they're all there. Okay. They never left. So when Alex, when you were telling that story like that reminded me that's exactly the kind of pushback that is to be expected, and that is not okay.
Like, okay,
that's not okay. Like, it's not okay for a contractor to call me or to label me as a groove player.
I completely understand that, George. I've heard this all my career. I've heard unbelievable, I'm a lot older than you, Alex. So the stuff I have heard is unbelievable. We won't get into it because I choose to rise above it all and keep going. And the young women today do have support. There's Women of Jazz organization. We can talk about that and how to handle that and how to bring in a different dialogue. around, you know, yes, I don't look like, maybe I don't look like your typical bass player,
Right.
but that's not what we're doing here. It's
Right.
2021, and most of us have been trained in many different styles and spent years perfecting all these different things. Just this summer cracked me up because right now I'm in Massachusetts. And I would go to these jam sessions up here. It's like I'm like about 2 hours north of the city in the Berkshires. So I was like, oh, I just want to play with people. I don't even care. And but it's got to be safe. It's got to be outside. We had masks on. We were really far apart. So I show up with my electric bass over my back. This guy comes up to me and goes, "Are you the singer?" And I'm like,
Oh
"No."
my God.
Ben.
Yeah.
And I said, "No, I'm not the singer." And I was like, whatever. I just kind of ignore it. And then the next week I come in with, they actually hired me and they go, this other guy comes to me and I was wheeling in my upright bass and he goes, "Do you play that?" I
Is
go,
that for your boyfriend or your husband? Why are you helping him out?
There's that.
I'm carrying it from my boyfriend because he's running late.
Yeah.
And I might have to play a couple tunes at the beginning and we'll just have to see what happens. He's like, "Oh, okay."
That's awesome.
Nice.
And then my boyfriend never showed up. I was like, I don't know where he is. That's what happens. He's a no show. The guy's looking at me like, okay.
That's funny.
Amazing. Yeah, I can't
That's
tell you how
amazing.
many times I've showed up and they're like, "Are you the singer? Are you the violinist?" Like, or even on the street, like I'll be wheeling my upright and I'll just get like jokes and being looked at like, "Don't you wish you played as like a flute, like some kind of feminine instrument?" I'm just like,
I mean, for what it's worth, I get those jokes
I'm
as
sure,
well.
I'm
So
sure.
this-
That's true. That's true.
I mean, I usually just push my bass into the person who does that.
Right.
So
Am
I
I-
just, they'll shut them up, you know.
I'm over. Yes.
That's what I do. No, but it's I'm not even joking. Like, you come at me with some attitude, you're gonna have a 120-year-old bass in your face. It's just-
Literally.
better than elsewhere.
I'll
Yeah.
get it fixed gladly, you know, even if it breaks, I'll get it fixed. It'll be worth it. Okay. But you will never say that again. Because you
We
know.
were- We
Go
were
ahead.
in Florida with School of Rock, and I was going to be interviewed for some radio guy in Florida, whatever. And like the first thing he says to me is, "Well, you're the bass player?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, but you sing in the orchestra pit, right?"
Oof.
And I just, man, there was some part of me that just shut off as soon as I heard that. I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. It just felt so, you know, old
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
tired,
Yeah.
you know. And yeah, like we've talked about, so many times, "Oh, you're the singer, right?" "Yeah, no, I carry this just because I want to."
Fun. Yeah.
It's just annoying.
Yeah, no, that I get that. I totally get that. It's Carl, I'm gonna get to you in just a second. I just wanted to add this one thing, and this just came to me while talking about these experiences. You do get, and this might be interesting for, I hope this is interesting for the people out there listening. You do get a heightened sense of understanding code. Okay.
Yeah,
Of understanding,
that's true.
like what does that mean? What does it mean when a contractor calls me a groove player? That means that he absolutely does not want to call me for anything else, right? And that he is looking for an out and a reason why not to call me. That's the only reason there is. There's no, what is groove music? You tell me. Because last I checked, music is defined by number one, rhythm, melody, harmony. So you tell me, right? No, you get a heightened sense of a sixth sense of reading and hearing code, right? And coded messages. Another one that I love very much, which is really vicious and insidious, is your subs need to have Broadway experience. Ooh. So that basically means so not supposed to call people who've never done this. Well, okay, well then let me take a look. Who's doing it right now? Oh, wait a second, it's a bunch of white dudes.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really just supposed to call white dudes for this subbing situation.
More code, right?
More code, yeah.
More
It's
code.
important. It's important for people out there listening to realize that this code is out there, and it is totally racist, and it is based on racial stereotypes that go back many decades, all right, and gender stereotypes. Let's not forget that. Carl, your 2 cents.
Well, just hearing these stories, it's just same old, right? I do, I've done a few workshops, and you're playing, and it has nothing to do with it's funk, right?
Right.
But they look at you, it's like, man, that was funky, and I would turn and say, no, it wasn't. Like, I know what I'm doing. I know what funk is. Right. Now you may be hearing more note value. Right. If you consider that funky, then that's on you. But see, when they see that you're Black, you are automatically funky.
Right.
And that is not okay with me. And I'm not gonna, put my base in you as George Farmer would, but you're gonna get something from me that you didn't expect.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm nice until I'm not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't play those games.
Right.
And so that those are the things, and I've had that a lot. Or you're somewhere like a workshop, and people, you look up and someone's just staring at you, and you're like, you all right? Like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and again, it's code, and I've done this a lot, and this is in and out of Broadway. They'd rather have their person there.
Right.
And it's almost like they look at you like, how did you get this?
Yeah.
And I'm sure the ladies on here can I've all dealt with that, and George as well.
Oh yeah.
It's like they look at you, there's just, and again, it's code, and it's silent.
Yeah.
But it's cutting. You know what I mean? And I've experienced that a lot.
Yeah.
And like I said, I've done these workshops, and people, you walk in and they're just looking at you like, who is this? Because I've not been doing this a long time. So a lot of folks don't know who I am, but it's like you walk in and now they don't know you, so they don't dig you. It's a weird concept.
Right.
It's a weird vibe, and they would rather have their person there. And it's such, now you're of color coming in there, so there's an added layer of mess.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? That you feel that you're projecting, and that you're feeling. It's like, I felt that before. This is almost I shouldn't be used to it.
Right.
And I'm not, but I still got to do, at the end of the day, I have to do my gig. I have to come in here, and I have to read this stuff, and I have to play my ass off.
Right.
Getting back to being better than the boy who you wanted here, or you wish were here, thinking, oh, he can do or she can do better than you. So yeah, that's I didn't mean to be dark or anything.
No. This
experience.
Is
you know what I mean? This is what it is.
Yeah. This is what there is. Yeah, this is what there is to be expected. I mean, I for as long as I breathe, I will be always indebted to Tom Barney, who gave me my first subbing job.
Absolutely.
And I'll never forget the first time I went there. It was still at the New Amsterdam Theater. The first thing that Tom says, like, understand that these people are not on your side, no matter what you do. This is a great job, and I think that you have what it takes. Right. And he said that without knowing me and without ever hearing me or any of that stuff. He just wanted to be encouraging, right? And supportive, right? I think the fact that you are here right now tells me that you have what it takes. But understand, I'm in the minority, right? And you're going to have to, the minute I'm not here and you played, it's all on you, right? And you will probably, you know, have a couple daggers thrown at you. That's just what it is, you know. So it's important for people to hear that. It's very important to understand that you know, this is out there, and that this is the environment that you're going into, and perhaps by having panels like what we are doing right now, and by all, and with all the other organizations, Maestra, Muse, diversity, the diversity group at 802, you know, the jazz group at 802, like all of these entities are there for a reason, and they're all important, right? But it's also important for our stories to be heard, right? And for people to hear themselves. And again, here I go with the repeating, but it's important for people to be repeated, or be reminded of that, to have themselves, to hear themselves in our stories. This is very, very important, because for me, coming to New York, I always wanted to be a sideman. I always wanted to be a side musician. Like there was no two ways. There was no doubt in my mind that that's a possibility, right? That's not the same for people nowadays, all right? Or that's not the same for everybody. So if anybody out there hears themselves, or hears part of their story reflected in our stories, it's very, very important, and it's very encouraging, right? This particular group, this particular part of the business tends to be somewhat secluded, or in a bubble, right, from everything else, because it's so specific, right? We play theater, and we play and you know, we play all of this music away from an audience. We're not seen, right? So it's very easy to kind of overlook it, right? But if you're able to, if you're so inclined, if you want to see it, it is there. Let me just take a question real quick, because in the comments we have Jimmy McGear says, is it important to join the union, join 802 before trying to sub in New York City? I believe it is.
It is.
You have to be part of 802. There's no two ways about that. You cannot be not part of 802 and play shows. It's damn near impossible. There might be some off-Broadway musicians, off-Broadway theaters that don't require union membership, but you know, this I don't think there are that many, to be honest.
Right.
So yes, you have to be 802 member, and then, you know, you spread out and you try finding subbing gigs. Let me just look up. I have one more point. I know, and I do appreciate all of your patience, because we've been on now for almost an hour and a half. And this is perhaps the last one, and we can kind of leave it for the audience out there. Leave the audience with this, with these thoughts. And that is that in this industry, on this part of the industry, the quid pro quo is how we get jobs, right? I sub for you, you sub for me, you know, I know this person, I know that person, they know me, you know, there's recommendations, there's all of that stuff. And it seems as if that can be a daunting endeavor to get into, right? It's like, how do you start? I mean, is usually the question that comes up right away. Like, how the hell do you start if you have the goods, right? If you know the music. And also, let me just add one more thing to that, because it has come up, talking about styles and genres, okay? I just want to put that definition out there and see if all of you agree, disagree, or to a certain degree. Knowing a style means knowing the music, knowing the songs. It does not mean academically understanding what funk or rock or jazz or Brazilian or whatever is. It means knowing songs. That's my definition of knowing a style of music. What do you guys think about that? What do all of you think about that? Is that something that resonates to a certain degree? Is that something that perhaps can can be a takeaway from this?
I think it could be a takeaway. Absolutely. I mean, knowing the songs, like if you're working for singers, it would be great if you knew, the phrasing, the amount of bars, you really get in, you hear the key change. Yeah, the music.
Yeah.
But I also think, playing different grooves with different drummers in different genres is super helpful too. I think you mean the whole thing, like song and it's a Brazilian song, find out what's going on there. Like, where does this start in the changes? What is the form? Some of those Brazilian songs have like different phrasing, and yes, get to know the song, and that then helps you get to know the genre.
Get to know the recording, listen to the music. It's music is not a collection of notes on a piece of paper. Music is
like, don't even play it, just listen to it. Just listen to the song. Don't just like put it on. Okay, I'm going to try to go. No, just you got to walk before you run. So just listen to what's happening.
Yeah.
And just whatever style it is, listen to many different styles. Just listen.
Yeah.
And just absorb that. You know what I mean? I think it's because then you're living it. You're living it, and then you can apply it. And then now something's going to translate through you. You're going to be you're filtering it through you, and it's going to come out how it's going to come out. But at least it's almost like you should internalize it, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
In order to internalize it, you have to listen to it.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, listen to it, internalize it, and just be it. You know what I mean? And just and then apply it. Whether it's it's a 1-bar phrase over and over again. Just listen to it and feel that, because that's where your feel is. Right. You know what I mean? So, or a whole song, just keep listening to it.
Right.
And keep listening. And just, like I said, I think internalizing is kind of what we do, with these, with Broadway songs, right?
Right.
You have to internalize it, because if something goes wrong or anywhere, if something happens, or if the sax player shifts, if he or she blows 2 bars ahead, you got to know where it is. And if you're not going to know that unless you internalize the song and know that, so that's why you have to know the song, whether you're on Broadway or anywhere else. You have to know the song, because anything can happen. So it's kind of like a dual purpose, right? So say, you know the song so well, you got to know it like you wrote it, and then that way you're going to play it like you wrote it. You dig? And so that's it for me. It's internalizing it, no matter what style you're playing.
Yeah. I think it's just that the argument has come up, many times over, that you have to be versatile, you have to know different styles and all of that.
Right.
Very, very seldomly is there a definition for what that actually means.
Right.
And there are. Go ahead, Alex.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I completely agree with you that there's like a little bit of a musicology aspect to it. Like, if you're playing Latin music, there's a difference between a tumbao, between samba, between a bossa nova. Like, they're all very different, and it's very obvious if you don't know which is which, or which clave you're playing. I learned that from Irio, whatever, 10 years ago. But this very specific, minute elements of each style, and you incorporate that into your own whenever necessary.
Right.
I just think that's a huge element also.
Oh yeah. And again, like it in my mind, it always circles back to, how do I get to the minute details? By listening to the songs.
Because that shows that you're really invested in it, and that shows that you're not just showing up out of nowhere.
Yeah, most definitely.
Sure.
Lynn, anything to add to that before I go to the next question?
No, I think you all have covered it. Absolutely.
Irio is on the chat, and he says, "Good job, Alex."
I'll never forget.
So let me get back to the question that I proposed earlier, which is, how do players get in? How do players get in that have the goods and perhaps don't have the relationships, you know, don't have the like in my case, the 10 years of hoarding contacts, you know, and keeping in touch and playing gigs and all of that stuff. How do you get in? What is your take on that? Who hasn't gone first this time? Marianne, you haven't gone first.
Okay.
Marianne.
So my is that you contact people politely via email and maybe just say, I would love to, if you're doing a show, you know, audit the show. Can I come in? And if you're not allowed to bring people in, you'll say, I can't do that, but please stay in touch. Now, I've done that a lot. There was a show I was doing and it was okay to just I actually brought a lot of people in there.
Yeah, you brought me in. You brought me in for
Avenue Q?
Avenue Q. Yeah. You already had enough subs, but you were one of the few people who were nice enough to say, listen, I have enough subs, but why don't you come and check this out?
Yeah, you brought me in for Gentleman's Guide just to watch. And I was like,
yeah, I mean, if they'll allow that I'm happy to do that because you not just get to know the bass player, but they're getting to see the scene there, and you know, how small it is and how many, like, depending on the gig, like pedals or where to throw the upright bass in the corner and grab like string and bam, you know, and you have the avium and all this stuff you do. It's good to know, and also get to know when you're at that pit, when you visit, you thank the person, which you guys did because you're very sweet. But some people I never heard from, and I'm like, okay, and then they're gone, and that's fine too. But it's really about relationships and starting relationships and inviting, like, you know, I wanted to go hear Alex play live because I really didn't get to. I had heard you only on videos, so I went to your gig, a couple of your gigs. You know, it's about relationships. Like, if you're in person and you got a gig somewhere, invite me, you know, and if I can't make it, that's okay, but at least I know you're out there doing something. Right. And then I'll probably see you on social media somehow, you know, all how things have gone. But I really think it's about cultivating relationships, and when you're in the pit, also meeting the other musicians. Just be nice, introduce yourself, and stay out of the way. No.
Yeah, right.
Because, you know, all the dressers who are like, you know, and you just gotta, like, you know.
It's a whole environment.
It's an etiquette thing too, and I think there has been some seminars done on that at 802 Before the Plague. About, you know, how to approach someone, and, you know, there was a lot of activity in that to bring in a more diverse, younger crowd, more women, you know, just everybody. I mean, come on, everybody deserves a chance at this. You know, if they really want to do it and they want to work that hard, because you're going to work like an animal. I mean, I don't you guys remember working 6 or 7 days a week. Remember that?
Oh yeah. Believe me, my show is 2.5 hours of a bass solo. that's it. I know what that feels like.
I mean, if you, like, I tell my students, if you want to work 12 hours a day, come into the music business. Come on in, because you gotta, like, be so prepared. You got to keep your chops up. You got to go out and meet people. You got to support people when that person who invited you to something, like somebody that holds a chair, find out if they're playing somewhere else. Support them. You know, it's about support as well for all to integrate. You know, it's going to help the integration of our scenes coming together. It's getting better, you know, but it's like
we have a long way to go.
Long.
Lynn Keller, what are your 2 cents?
Well, you know, what we do, it's not anything you could learn in school. So, young people that are first coming in, spending time in the pit, as Marianne said, and learning that environment, the aviom in and of itself. I mean, that's a whole world, right? And the different avioms and those kinds of things and experiencing. There's so much to learn about what we do, whether it's what kind of headphones or in-ears do you use. Learning, the biggest thing initially for me, the scary thing was the little monitor clipped to my music stand. It was petrifying.
Right.
It takes you out of body in a way.
Yeah.
So, inviting, I think it's a great idea. Invite people, if you can, to sit in the pit and let them experience the whole, because that's something you don't get anywhere else.
Yeah.
I was really lucky that I had a music director that liked me a lot and brought me in on several shows. And that was a huge blessing.
Right.
It was a huge blessing. And that's something you can't make happen. I was really lucky about that. So that helped me get my feet wet and introduce me to other music directors and other, contractors and things like that. But I think reaching out to people, and it's just like when I moved to LA and I wanted to get involved in the scene, and I would go to these gigs all the time, and there was a drummer that I just thought was so great, and I wanted to play with him, and I went and hung out at his gigs for years, and learned. And even when I first met you, George, it was Spring Awakening, and I remember just like, oh my God, I was just so wild about your playing and your presence. And
Thank you.
And I went and I met you backstage.
Yes.
And that was a beginning for me. So, reaching out to people, I think you're right, Marianne. I think it is very much about relationships. Starting to form those and create a circle around you. So.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I do believe that there's a lot to be. Again, for me, I'm always coming back to the John Miller Clinic and being our own contractor, so to speak. You're not alone. Okay, and you're not alone. You're not an individual on an island. Okay, and people are all of a sudden gonna find you, right? You do have to put yourself out there, right? And you have to, like, the minute you do put yourself out there, understand full, and I'm also talking to myself, that you are going to find reciprocation, and on the other hand, you'll find pushback. Okay, it is entirely okay to realize what is what, and it's very, very important for your own psyche and for your own movement, so to speak. Everything like this, I'm a big believer of the universe is change. Change is the only constant in the universe, right? But we need to see change, and we need to see change in behavior. We need to see change in how we react and how people are reacting to us, right? Very, very important to sort of be aware of that and understand that whatever is coming at you can equal parts be admiration, support, and on the other hand also pushback. Okay, that's very, very important to realize. And based on that, you kind of make you build your circle, you build your community, and that's kind of at least for me, that was a takeaway. That has helped me through all these shows that I've done, and people don't necessarily see the difficulty with having one successful show is that expectations are really high. Okay, I've had 5, so people come in. And my door is always open. I've had 50 bass players come in to check out Ain't Too Proud. Okay, 5 of those are playing the shows as my sub, but so far the count is 50. And whoever calls me, calm down. Here's a chair. Here's the music. Here's the recording. You want to learn it? Who am I to say no? That's how I roll. Right. That's and Alex knows this. I've always been that way. That's just what I do. Right. Carl, Alex, who wants to go? what can people do to who don't have the goods? You know, oh, sorry, who have the goods? No, those who don't have the goods, work on them.
I think
the great Bruce. Sorry, Carl. The great Bruce Swedien, the recording engineer, said,
"Oh yeah,
if you don't know how to, if you don't have a good singer, get a better singer. if you don't have the goods, work on them. That's you know. But the people who do have the goods, you know, how can they approach this? How can they get in, or how can they make this part of their career? It's, you know.
I think you, Marianne said it. It's about relationships. You know, it's about meeting the people. It's about reaching out. And like you say, George, you're going to get pushback. Yeah. Like I said, no one called me back when I first started making the calls and emails. No one.
Right.
So I was like, but I kept at it, you know, right. And I think you just have to, you know, when you do, like say with George is say, come on in. You have to take advantage of that. And just sit there and learn as much as you can. And while you're there, you know, I'm like you, George. I have people call me up. I'm like, come on in. Come on in. You sit with me. You know, we're on stage. So I have a station right behind me, an artist station right behind me, as you, George, you know, and Alex. And it's like, come on in. And what I like to do is break bread with people as well. You know what I mean? And sit and almost mentor people. Right. You know, and they just ask me anything, because I always say this is free information, man. It's like, you know, people like to try to play this game like, oh, the secret. It's like, ain't no secrets here, man. This is all you. What do you want to know? You know, I can tell you how I did it. You know, it might not be your path, you know, but that's just a way, you know, just one way of looking at it. And I think that's the thing too. We that do it need to open ourselves and open up to like helping other people.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, you know, I think a lot of times folks are they put their heads down, they just do their thing. But there are a lot of people out here that need help, you know, and you gotta, if you want to, you know, a lot of people that want to be put down. So like, you know, with George, when I first started doing this, I think I was Bring It On. And you were like, come on, let's hang out. And I was like, wow, really? You're like, yeah, come on. And, you know, and we sat and we broke bread. And that really taught me a lot about how I should go about the business of this, you know, this Broadway thing, if you will, you know what I mean? So I do the same thing. And what I like to do is I like having people come in like a Wednesday or Saturday, come in the first show, and then in between shows, let's just hang out. And we can talk for hours, and it's okay. We can go have dinner or whatever. So, but again, getting back to, I think it's just, you know, just reaching out to people and learning as much as you can, you know, like Lynn was saying about, you know, just what does this thing do? What does this look like? You know, how do you, you know, set your bases in the dance of, you know, you going from the upright to the fretless, you know, it's all part of that and of that learning process. You know, you're not going to just walk in and just do it. None of us have. But you have to, it's all a learning process, you know, and you want to learn. If you want to do this, you better want to learn. And like I think Marianne was saying, and work hard and work your butt off. You know, this is not easy. You know, it may look easy, like, oh yeah, you're just up there. You know, like I was saying earlier, I'm having a blast, but I didn't start that way. None of us started that way. So I think relationships, though. Definitely relationships are key to doing this on any level.
Most definitely. There's a big thing, you know, about learning. Alex, I'm going to get to you in just a second, but this actually ties in with you because you subbed for me on Fun Home. And with Fun Home, you know, all of a sudden you had five instruments that you had to play, right? And that my instruments are set up for me, and my setup isn't maybe not the most easy. I'm trying to be diplomatic.
Right.
That doesn't really work out. It's set up for me, and I like it. Okay, that's all I can say. But you know, learning your stuff and learning your situation and your environment included in this situation, getting in and shedding on those instruments, right?
Well, the thing about your show was not even like the setups for me. It's that there'd be such quick changes. Carl, your Come From Way is super, super fast too. And
crazy.
And it's also like super dark at certain moments when you're trying to play fretless on some song and you're like, oh, please just be in tune. Like, where's the line? I can't see it.
Oh yeah.
And like, I don't have to trip over anything. I have to get in the back of the upright while like I have the electric on my back for Carl. It's a dance. I mean, I loved it. I loved practicing that. I loved like just knowing where everything was, and I don't know. That was fun. But yeah, I mean, if you're not used to that, it is so tricky. And I don't even know. But yeah.
your 2 cents, Alex, your 2 cents on people who have the goods and who want to get in. What is your advice, or what is your opinion or your position on that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, when I left tour and I came to New York, I'd never lived in New York, or I mean, I just graduated college, done these 2 tours, and now with that behind me, I kind of use that as not leverage, but as like a credit, you know. So I had a little bit of an advantage of I have done a thing, but in the city I hadn't. So I was just saying yes to everything, like to a no paying thing here, or to some person that I've never heard of here. Like I was just really hungry to work and meet people and hustle. And I had no life, but I just kept going at it, you know, because that's what you do. And it was fun and exciting, and you just are throwing yourself into it. But yeah, you have to be committed to doing that, and like sacrificing other parts of your life in order to make this hang, or watch this book, or email this person. And luckily I've had so many people who, again, like have taken me under their wing. Like I'm looking at all of you. I mean, Lynn, I hope to meet you one day, but like Marianne, but Marianne, like we've had such an amazing relationship, and she's been there for me through so much. And George, like you let me in at Fun Home, and Carl was like, I think Bring It On was the first show I ever subbed for, like through the Lackmore connection. And Kurt, we kind of got introduced, and then we realized that we had the Connecticut connection. We're both from Connecticut, or live in Connecticut, and we just became like buddies. That was like, how long ago was that? And I think of him like Carl is just like a amazing friend and advisor and mentor, and just like person I can bounce ideas off of and I respect. So it's about relationships, hustle, drive, preparedness. Throw yourself into all these situations and just see where it leads, and everything will go somewhere, even if you think it, like the Bye Bye Birdie Chappaqua. It's like, what are the odds? Like it's such a fluke, you know, so you really never know.
Right. Well, listen, it's been almost 2 hours. It's, you know, this was an enlightening and delightful conversation with all of you. Again, I wanna thank all of you for making yourselves available. Means the world to me, and I know it means a lot to the audience out there. Again, I urge, you know, black musicians, I urge female musicians, take a stab at this. This is part of your workload. This is what it means to be a freelancer. All right. This is what it means to be on top of your game. This is what it means to go into any situation and hold it down. And you know, this is where and I don't say this lightly, because I do like amateurs, but this is where the amateurs and the pros are. There's a difference, okay? This is it. This is the dance, and or I should say, this is part of the dance. And if you wanna, I urge everyone out there listening to this, taking this in, to make this part of your career choice, of your career planning. Maybe another thing that I will perhaps talk about in other videos is the planning aspect of it, because this, you know, this needs to be thought out. This is not just randomly going here, there, and everywhere. This needs to be thought out, and it's okay that there is thought put into this. It's a fucking career after all. So, this, this doesn't come from doesn't come out of thin air. Okay. Right. So, Carl Carter, Ann McSweeney, Lynn Keller, Alex Eckhardt, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your words, for your insights, for sharing all of this, for sharing your time.
Thank you, George, for doing
this. George,
this is
so wonderful.
Yeah, this is amazing. What you're doing, you're just knocking it out every week. So thank you. We really appreciate you doing
I appreciate that.
I'm seriously.
Dinner when the plague ends.
What? Oh yeah, most definitely. Hey, me noodle shop. My spot. Just saying.
Love it.
I mean, everybody jumped on the ramen bandwagon. I'm like, I've been eating Chinese food for many years. I'm not changing.
Well, let's do it and do it soon, right?
We'll fly you in. We'll get a budget together. We'll fly you in for dinner. It's going to be great.
Perfect. Consider it done. All right. Sure. Well, all of you out there listening, all of you out there watching this, I'm gonna leave you with what I say every week. First of all, thanks for being part of this, and be kind, be cool, and remember, we only have each other. All right. I'll see you all next week. Sure. Later.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.